on in here. Wow, my fingers are so greasy.
Thousands of years ago, the shaggy buffalo reigned unchallenged in the West, and the Canadian prairies echoed to the thunder of a million hoots. To see them then, no one could guess that this monarch of the plains would face extinction like that of the dinosaur. And he was every inch a monarch. 6 feet in height, his massive bulk seemed the more awe-inspiring on account of the huge hump formed by his head muscles. The buffalo, or to give him his right name, the bison, knew himself secure from bears and wolves. They had a wholesome respect for his charging horns. He spent his days peacefully. Sometimes he would indulge in his favorite beauty treatment at the wallow. It was his way of taking a bath, and the cows watched admiringly while he took it. Sometimes he would scratch himself meditatively against a convenient tree, getting rid of some of the weight of his winter coat, or for other reasons. Mostly, his life was placid, content, and uneventful, unlike the lives of many monarchs. Of course, just as in all families, occasional friction might arise between the younger and more hot-headed spirits, little arguments would lead to tiffs. But as often as not, the young bulls fought together just out of pure exhilaration. Perhaps like human athletes, they just liked to test and exercise their strength. Perhaps they did it for the benefit of the admiring young cows who watched them. But after all, it was only a storm in the teapot of contented monotony. But the peace of this Garden of Eden was shattered by the coming of the Indian. From that moment, the buffalo ceased to be the monarch of the plains, for he had no defense against the red man's arrows. Yet there was still no threat of extinction. The far-sighted Indian saw in the herd a source of almost unlimited supplies. He began to hunt, and the unhappy buffalo became for him a sort of department store on legs. From him, the Indian obtained rich steaks. His hump provided pemmican. His skins made clothing, winter walls for the lodge, and canoe coverings. His hair was woven into cloth, and even his bones were carved into rude ornaments and utensils. But the Indian realized his dependence on the buffalo, and knew the buffalo's disappearance would mean starvation. He preserved the race and never hunted them beyond absolute needs. Centuries rolled by. And then one day appeared a new and more dangerous enemy for the buffalo. This was the white man invading the prairies with his covered wagon and driving back Indian and buffalo alike. And so the herd made the acquaintance of the bullet, even more deadly than the red man's arrow. Buffalo meat was tender and juicy, and buffalo skins acquired a market value. So the white men set out with a will to make a grim fortune with death as a partner. Killing right and left, killing for the gold the skins would bring. Killing for fresh meat, the white man drove the buffalo's thinning numbers back and back. The unfortunate buffalo was even an instrument of his own destruction, providing supplies for the hunters who pursued him. At first, the settlers killed only to serve some more or less useful purpose. They didn't worry about the future. The supply of buffalo seemed to be inexhaustible. A few of the wiser pioneers warned them that they couldn't keep it up forever, that the great herds would someday disappear and only piles of bones be left to dot the prairies. But they were laughed at, and their warnings soon forgotten. And now the white man went quite beyond the bounds of reason and slaughtered purely for the sake of killing. Where the Indians had slain in hundreds, the paleface slew in thousands and dignified it by the name of sport. The farther the buffalo was driven back, the farther he sought him. He organized large hunts, regardless of the fact that he would never want such quantities of meat and that the value of hides was dropping in a flooded market. But the very sight of the buffalo seemed to bring on a frenzy for his blood, and the hunters gathered like wolves with only one idea: to kill, kill, kill. They swooped down mercilessly on the herd, driving the last remnants of the prairie monarch to death or exile in a mad stampede. Westward rolled the settlers' wagons. The buffalo was only a memory. Tiny shack settlements sprang up. The paleface made wealth spring from the earth. Bridged rivers and canyons bound the land with bands of steel. Rushed the wheat from field to elevators, which multiplied until they became granaries for half the world. And then, over the forgotten wallows of the buffalo, towering young cities arose. By now, the buffalo was hardly more than a picture in a book. The Canadian government realized with a shock that extinction was at hand. Quickly, they determined to restock the herd. A vast tract of land in Alberta was reserved and named Buffalo National Park. The grandest ruminant that ever trod the earth was going to live again, a picture book animal no more. Perhaps the foothills of the park remembered. Perhaps ghosts of old bulls stirred in the neglected wallows at the news. The white man was bringing back the buffalo from exile. Then came the return of the buffalo. Back to the land of their ancestors they came. Back to live in the lands that had been theirs 10,000 years ago. Today, the buffalo lives fearlessly as of old, fearless of hunter, red or white, protected by law against the threat of arrow or bullet. Once again, the buffalo of the picture books is the mighty monarch of the plains.